In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to screen print reflective ink. Coming up. Welcome back everybody. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell icon so that way when we upload our next video, you'll get a notification. Let's go ahead and dive right into this tutorial. Alright, so we got about 36 of these shirts to print. It does have reflective piping on it, and we're going to do a reflective left chest print on these polos. The ink that I will be using is International Coatings Optilux 505. It's a reflective ink with an activator, so you will only have about 6 to 8 hours before that ink goes bad. Alright, so some of the things that you are going to need, you're going to need a scale. You're going to need something to mix your ink into. I just have these cheap little plastic cups that I'm going to use. This ink does require that you mix it 20 grams to 1 per the spec sheet. So let's go ahead and crack this open. Our print really isn't all that big. We don't need a whole lot of ink, but let's go ahead and set this to grams. So I'm going to shoot for 60. Okay, maybe maybe I'll shoot for 100. Sorry guys, that went out a lot quicker than I thought it would. And I'll show you how to properly make a mess. Okay, there we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and zero out our scale. Like I said, 1 gram per 20s. I over poured a little bit, which isn't a big deal. So I'm going to add 5 grams of the activator. There we go, we got 2. We got 4. Let's see if we can add an additional gram there. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this up. This ink is really runny. So we ended up hitting the 6 gram mark, and I'm just going to mix this up in my little disposable plastic cup. I think we are good, and I can feel the grittiness of this ink. That is the little reflective particles in there. Now let's go ahead and grab our screens and talk about mesh. Because we are printing on 100% polyester polos, we will have to use an underbase just to prevent dye migration. It is recommended to use an underbase with fine fiber materials such as this polo here. And the reason being is it will not be as reflective if you didn't. We're going to use a 110 mesh for the underbase, and then we're going to use a 195. The spec sheet says to use either a 156 to a 230. The reason being is if you put down too much of the carrier with the reflective particles, it will essentially not make it reflective because all of those particles will be buried down inside that carrier. So we're trying to put down as little ink as possible and still get those reflective characteristics. Golly. Like I said, here's my 110 and then my 195, so that way we're not laying down too much of that reflective ink. So let's grab our screens and go ahead and register this job up, and then we'll get to doing some samples. Alright, we got our white base down. Now what I'm going to do is take some clear transfer tape, put that over my base print with my registration marks, and we're going to register up that reflective ink overprint. Looks like we're all nice and registered, so now what I'm going to do is tape off my registration marks, and then we'll do some sample prints and we'll go to production. So off camera I had to do a little bit of an ink change on the base because the reflective ink really isn't that opaque of an ink. Let's go ahead. I already did some test prints. I'll show you those as well. We're going to go ahead and go to production, and I'll show you how to screen print reflective ink. This is the reflective ink without any kind of base. You can see that it is a little bit translucent, and then here we are with the gray base. And I'll show you guys what this looks like on the actual product in the dark with some really bright light hitting it. And you can even kind of tell, you can even see the reflectiveness of it here because it kind of looks white on camera, but it's really a darker gray. And this is the gray that we are using for the base. I essentially mixed up some NPT one-stroke white with a little bit of black, so that's working really well. And here is our reflective ink. You can see that it's pretty much the same color as the other gray, maybe a touch darker, but when we come over here and there is just that thin layer of that ink down, the reflectiveness to this, or however you want to say it. Reflectiveness, you can already see it taking effect just even in the daylight. Okay, now that I've done some sample prints, let's go ahead and start production. So I'm going to line my polo up, move this collar out the way so the flash doesn't harm it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my base just once. Just make sure that it's cleared. That looks pretty good. I'm going to roll my flash over. We're going to let that flash for about a good 8 seconds or so. Going to make sure that it is flashed properly. It looks like we need to flash a little more. The ink is a little thicker right here because of this collar, the button-up collar, so I'm going to flash it a little more. We're good to go. Now the key to doing the reflective ink is just flood it and give it one good hit, clearing your screen, and there we go. I mean, that's pretty much it. You don't want to pile it on, because the more you pile on, the more of the kind of carrier ink is going to lay down, and it will not allow those reflective beads, whatever's in there, to stand out and to be able to be hit by that light. So let's go ahead and toss this on the conveyor dryer. And curing the ink is really no different than curing any other plastisol. It just needs to reach 330 degrees. So we're going to let this run through, make sure our temp's right, and we're good to go. There we go, it's nice and cured. Everything looks great. We'll let it cool down for a little bit and we'll do a little bit of a stretch test. Okay, so it's nice and cured. It stretches really well without cracking. Now let's do some tests with some light. How reflective it is in the dark, blasted with the light of my cell phone. Looks pretty good. Well, that's about it for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. I'm gonna get to work. I got to print the rest of these, roll the outro with me doing some work.